In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, Christ is in our midst. In today's gospel, the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do to you, or the silver rule, as we also know about, which is don't do to someone what you don't want them to do to you. But in today's gospel, we hear about doing nice things to even people who are negative to us, to lend to people hoping not to get anything back in return, and to do good even if someone does bad to you. Now, I think sometimes in this gospel reading we can get in a frame of mind where all of a sudden we're thinking we have to go specifically to those people who are negative in our lives and do good things for them. And this gospel reading is more than just that. This gospel reading today is about not pigeonholing our life or segregating our lives into different pockets of behavior. If we think about how we are at home, we might use one type of language in front of our children. We might use another type of language in front of people we work with. Hopefully, our language with our children is the language we use with the people we work with, but that's not always the case, as we well know. Sometimes the language is very colorful, as to say the least, or inappropriate of things that are said in a workplace or even in the school system. And then when a person comes home, they have to transition into being the home person, being the person that speaks a certain way in the household, or to the kids, or to their spouse. And sometimes those worlds collide in a way that is devastating. But what does this tell us about how we are in our lives? It's not just language, but many times it's work ethic, it's the desire to please, it's the desire to be motivated. All those things can change from being home to being out in the public setting. I've heard many times people say that so-and-so is nicer to strangers than they are to their own family members. I've also heard sometimes that people say, my husband works so hard at work and he comes home and he won't do anything to help around the house. It's not just men. We could flip that around the other way, but sorry, guys. That's what happens. But what is the instability of the character of a person? The gospel reading today tells us not just to be nice to our enemies and to be merciful as God is merciful, but it's beyond that. And the beyond of that is to be the same person to everyone. And I think that is the lesson that jumps out of this gospel reading for all of us. Are you the same to your family? Are you the same to your children? Are you the same to your coworkers? Are you the same to people you might go to school with, or people that you encounter, your neighbors? Or do you have the girls group, the mom behaviors, the wife behaviors, or the guys group, or whatever? Does it change from place to place? Would you be embarrassed having the conversation that you had with your best friend, the last conversation you had, to come into church and have that conversation in church in front of me only? Would that conversation be like, no, there's no way I could say those things in front of the priest, or there's no way I could say those things even in the church, because it doesn't fit? And if that is part of our life, the gospel today is reminding us we can't have different people. We can't have one face, spin it around for something else and be something different. Yes, we wear different hats, as they say. You could be a father, a child, a spouse, a brother, a son, a mentor, a worker. I mean, you could be all these different things. But being those different things, Christ calls us to be the same in all things. Everything that we do, to be authentic, to be solid with who we are, but most of all, to be Christian in all our interactions. Because after all, if we are one way at work, and we are the potty mouth talkers at work and the gossipers at work, and when we come home, we're trying to be polished for our kids or whatever the case is, or in front of our family members, in front of our parents, to pretend that we're using good language and we're behaving and we're doing all these things. And no matter what the age, if you're 50 in front of your parents or 10 years old in front of your parents. Which one are we when we go to judgment? When we stand before God, who are we? And will Christ say to us, who are you really? You spent a lot of time at work acting this way. You spent a lot of time home acting this way. You spent a lot of time in private acting this way. Who are you? So when we look at our lives and try and define who we are as people, who we are as Christians, who we are as family members, friends, relatives, acquaintances, we have to understand that this gospel reading today says we have to be the same to everyone, to people who are good to us and to people who are bad to us. So the person who offends us, do we go off on a tangent and just be negative and offensive and aggravated to them and use bad language and treat them like garbage? And then when someone is nice to us, we praise them and we coddle them and we appreciate them. We're not supposed to be two different people. And sometimes in modern day society, we see more than just two parts of a person. We could see 3 or 4. I act this way with my buddies, and I act this way at work, and I act this way at home, and I act this way in front of my parents, and I act this way in front of my kids. I act this way in front of my neighbors. It becomes different things. We become chameleons, and in become a chameleon, what color is a chameleon? What are they? They're whatever color they're in, right? They can stay a certain color. If a chameleon's on a leaf, it's green. If it's on something else, it's yellow. It can be white. It can be a grayish color. It can be a dark brown. It becomes whatever it is in that scenario. And we cannot be chameleon Christians, morphing and changing and taking on the color of whatever that is, the color of the language, the color of the behavior. We can't just keep changing. We have to be the same. So as you look at this gospel reading today and as you feel it in your hearts and as you think about it, think about your lives during the liturgy today of what you do that just doesn't make sense with who you want to be and who you are purporting to be. What are the things that we do that we couldn't bring before God and things that we would be embarrassed to show Him, things that we would do in private or even in public that we would be embarrassed about? And we see that this is an absolute reality in today's day and age. And we know that because colleges, companies, and other forms of business now are looking at one thing before they hire someone. You know what that is? Not just a resume. What are they posting? What are they posting on Facebook? What are they writing about themselves? Is there a shot, in the bathroom like this with scantily clad, taking a selfie in the washroom? Is that someone you really want working for a company who's going to represent the company, who's going to be the face of the company? Or someone you want to offer a full scholarship to who's shown with beer bottles laying on the beach? Those types of things haunt people, and they don't even realize that it's out there. They do it, they forget about it. Oh, I did that and forgot about it. But it's out there. It's forever out there. So what are the things that we're doing that we have to just abandon and become solid with in front of God? And to look at our lives and really do an inventory and say, am I the same or do I play games? Am I not really authentic? And if you're not really authentic all the time, you will find that it will be very hard to be loved by other people. It's very hard to be loved when someone does not know who you are. And that's why marriages have problems. That's why friendships have problems. That's why children have problems, because they don't know who they are. If you don't know who you are in the eyes of the church, you're never going to have a relationship that will be deep in your life because they won't know who you are. And when the time comes, as St. Theophan says, that a friendship is challenged or a relationship is challenged, then the other side comes out, right? So, for example, a newly married couple. This is a real example, okay? It's not pie in the sky. Newly married couple, in love with each other. Father, this is going to be the greatest day of our lives. And then they go through the planning of the reception, and that's when they start hitting the first bumps, right? The planning of the reception. Anyone who's planned a reception, you know how bad that is, right? Do we invite Uncle Joey? And then sometimes you even hear with people, I'm not going to, they're going to bring $20 to the wedding. It's not even going to pay for their plate. I mean, these are the things that come up. And then we look at this couple that is excited to be married, and then now they're hitting the problems with who we can invite. We got to narrow down the wedding. The hall's not big enough. We have to do all these things. And then they start to hit this first bump. And if they're not solid, if they're not true to each other, if they're not understanding who they are in their lives, then the harsh work person can come out. The dictator in the job system can come out. And it comes out who? To who? The spouse. And then they say, I don't know who this person is. We've had a fight, and I've never seen this side of them before. And that's absolutely right, because it's the spinning of the face. It's the work face, it's the home face, it's the play face, it's the friend face. And that's what happens, and that's how relationships dissolve in life. And I'm not just talking about marriages. I'm talking about relationships with parents with children, children with parents, people with other friends, people with relatives. That's how that happens. When they don't know who they're going to encounter when times get tough or when there's a disagreement. And St. Theophan, as I mentioned in one of my lectures recently, said specifically that don't call anyone your friend until you've really hit a difficult time. And if you get through that, then you can say, that's my friend. That's the person. And who are the best friends that we are going to have? Are our family members. Not people on the outside, but within. The people that we can lean on, trust, and have shown us love, and that we've shown love for many years. But we have to be the same. And St. Paul mentions something beautiful about Christ when he says about the person of Christ. He says, Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And that's the same thing we said at the beginning of this sermon and every sermon. Christ is in our midst. He was, is, and always shall be. He is before, now, and later. He is the same person, the same God that has always been and will continue to be the same. And that's why he calls us to be the same, not only to the people we love, but also the people that are very difficult to be around, the people that betray us. We still have to live the Christian life around the love in our lives and also the people who go against us. Amen.